Gabby picked us up at 8. I'm like, are you sure? You don't start till 10.
I walked in and I thought.
Are you going to Cooch? I'm not gonna make that. Huh? District one?
I sent her an email, I'm
I
like,
suffered that early conference this week.
She said, yes, Josh, I have to set the room up. and that-
She can't be late no matter who she's driving.
yeah.
What do they say? Early is on time and on time is late.
And late is unthinkable.
Yeah.
So what time did you get here then? 8:30?
Yeah.
Oh.
Don't worry.
Yes, I can spend more.
Yeah.
Said when I was a kid, I spent more time in church than anybody because my dad had to be the first guy there and my mom had to be the last.
You know, Jerry always says that I'm the last one up, but I'll be honest, it's Jerry. No.
I said I will be very patient. And so we'll do what you need to do. Probably good for me.
All right, it is 10 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Rise for the pledge. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have some time set for public forum. Does anybody want to speak for public forum? You're just in time, sir. Did you want to speak today? No. Brian, there's nobody online, right? I keep forgetting to ask you that. I'm sorry. So we're going to move on to the agenda. Do we have any additions?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Dave Minke, County Administrator. There are no additions to the agenda. There is some additional information related to commissioner updates. There's a how AMC works for you handout, and then some slides from the recent Chemical Health Coalition meeting related to the opioid settlement spending.
So can we have a motion to accept the agenda?
I'll second.
So is that Matt? Matt and Steve? Okay. I have a motion by Matt and a second by Steve. Are there any questions on the consent or on the agenda? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So we need to approve the minutes of September 3rd and the summary for publication, and then also the minutes for September 10th for our special budget meeting.
I'll move them.
Steve?
I'll second.
Thank you, Josh. We have a motion by Steve, a second by Josh. Are there any questions on either of those or any of those? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And to approve the consent agenda. Are there any questions on the consent agenda?
I'll move it, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Matt.
I can second.
Josh. We have a motion by Matt, a second by Josh. Once again, are there any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And we are on to our regular agenda, where we are going to hear from Leslie.
Good morning. I'm really glad you're here to give you a presentation on the community development block grant as well as their housing activity. That grant, this is requirements of funding source. So I'll just get an overview and then for public. All right, so what I prepared is just kind of like a timeline of what happened. So we received the community development block grant to do two specific activities. We applied for the funding in May of 2021. I think in the first couple of weeks that I was here at the county, it was done in collaboration with Savage Communications out of Hinckley and A Place for You, the homeless shelter in Pine City. We overall requested a little over almost $4 million, and we received our full request. 3 million of it was to put broadband infrastructure in, and another $500,000 for a shelter retrofit to make the homeless shelter be able to abide by the COVID rules and regulations that were in place at the time. And then a little chunk of change to do the grant administration, which involves hiring people to help with the grant administration, as well as some of my time and county staff time to do the work. So why did we do this? So there was a bucket of one-time funding for the CARES Act that could assist low and moderate income folks in preventing, preparing for, responding to COVID-19. It was in the community development block grant bucket, which typically is funded every year. Where we see it locally is typically as a small cities development program that DEED administers out. So the same office was releasing these funds through a grant application process. Non-entitlement jurisdictions can apply for these funds, and that is where we fall. Entitlement communities are the bigger cities that just get them directly from the federal government, and that's how your Minneapolis and St. Paul and Duluth, and I believe even like Rochester, St. Cloud receive these funds every year to work on community development projects. But communities of our size have to apply for them through DEED, through a competitive grant application process. So our projects could have been anywhere through that would do public service, retrofitting buildings, broadband development, but it must benefit low and moderate income populations. So we applied for the building retrofit for the shelter, as well as broadband development in a very specific area that met that low and moderate income guideline. So we got lucky. We fit the criteria and we had projects that worked. Doesn't always happen. So once we received our funding notification in August, that fall, we worked on the startup policies, which are federal requirements. And then we started the overall kind of the high look of the environmental review so that we could have funds released to do the grant administration. The shelter was cleared in December of 2021, so we could move forward with some of those activities. Broadband took a little bit more time. We did an initial assessment by hiring Hometown Fiber to help us with it, and then embarked on a full environmental assessment through Compass Consultants, which is Savage Communications consultant that handles their environmental stuff. And
Madam Chair,
Yep, go ahead, Matt.
where is that shelter located?
Pine City.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yep. Then moving into the next year, January through March of 2022, we put a request for proposals out for an architect to help draw up the plans for the shelter. LHB was then hired by the board in March of 2022, and the initial environmental assessment started or continued for broadband. And this takes several months. So you'll see that on another slide. Then in April through June, DEED cleared the broadband development environmental assessment. And now we could access the full broadband administrative funds to conduct the full environmental assessment. And LHB then drafted the plans and we started to send those plans to DEED for approval. That is, I threw in there too, when inflation started to impact the scope of work. So we went from a $500,000 project to something much larger due to the increase of costs of labor and materials. So that summer, the scope continued to be fine-tuned and reviewed by DEED. We had to seek additional funding because some survey work needed to be done outside the shelter to make the entrance ADA accessible. And that increased our architect fees because of the multiple revisions requested by DEED. So the shelter was starting to contribute some of their own private match to the grant in order to keep the project moving forward. Then Compass Consultants started the full environmental assessment for broadband infrastructure. So that initial one kind of identified key areas where the project was going that might need a deeper review. And that's why we had to embark on that. Then the second fall, we had the grant, so October through January. The scope for the shelter is finalized and DEED approves us to send it out for bid, or at least get the bid package finalized by January. Our final cost estimate from the architect was right around the grant amount of $532,000. So we felt okay about it. And then the full environmental assessment for broadband was still going. There was a lot of mapping going on and there had to be an archaeological review and we were waiting for everybody to return their comments. So it kind of drug out a bit long, but everything kind of wrapped up in January. We also then decided to hire Hometown Fiber to inspect the broadband construction work, because typically like with road and sewer and water projects, you have your engineers that go out and make specifications are done. When you retrofit a building, you have a building official that looks at your plans, makes sure everything is built the code? What do you do with broadband construction? And that's kind of been a conundrum with broadband infrastructure installations is people say they did it, but maybe they didn't do it to what they said they were going to do it. So we hired Hometown Fiber as part of this grant using the grant administration dollars to go out and field check the infrastructure that Savage Communications was going to put in. And then we finally made our first draw request, and I celebrate that just because the county was holding a lot of costs for this grant until we could request it. So it was kind of a light celebration. They didn't let us request all the money that we were holding, but got some of it. Then in February through May of 2023, that deep dive into the environmental assessment continued, and the design recommendations went off to be completed and reviewed and approved. The shelter retrofit went out for bid, and we didn't get any bids initially, so we had to repost it. And then when we finally did get a bid, it was 3 times what we expected it to be. So we were $1 million over budget, about mid-May 2023. We weren't sweating yet, though. Okay, a little bit. I was like, oh, this isn't gonna work. Then in the summer of 2023, things at the shelter kind of got a little hairy. So due to the labor standards requirements, material costs, and labor availability, everything increased. So we sat down with the contractor that submitted the bid, and I'm like, can you explain why this is this much and this is this much? Is there anywhere we can reduce it? And there really wasn't a lot of areas we could. But about August of 2023, that summer, their HVAC completely shut down. Like the air handler stopped moving air. So they didn't have air conditioning. They didn't have a way to even move like air through it. They had fans. They have no windows that open. They were in pretty rough shape there in August. The light at the end of the tunnel was that our state passed a bunch of legislation that threw a bunch of money into certain projects, and this project was potentially eligible for some additional shelter money to finish the project. So that was our all fingers crossed hope that maybe these funds would come through. So we started working with the shelter staff of applying for a lot of different grants, but also a big bucket of money from the state's Office of Economic Opportunity. So we also did get our broadband environmental clearance completed in July. And so Savage Communications immediately started construction like the week after we got that clearance. So the broadband started going in July of 2023. And then last fall, we were able to draw some more funds down because the broadband was getting in, and DEED had this weird policy where you had to spend construction dollars in order to tap into your admin dollars. So with Savage Communications being able to put in 28 miles of broadband, and by September released a lot of our admin dollars so we could relieve some of those holding costs. And then we got really good news from DHS, Office of Economic Opportunity, their shelter capital fund. A place for you was able to scare a little over $1 million to finish the project. So we started the contract execution with the general contractor, started moving money towards getting the HVAC repaired through the Cargo Foundation, and construction officially began on the shelter in December. So kind of a big breath of relief that we could secure some additional funding to get this project done. So for the last 9 months, it's been super, super busy with this project, considering how long we've had it, and it's just ramped up. Almost all of our draw requests came out in the last few months. The shelter wrapped up in August, broadband wrapped up in July, and we're expecting to close out this grant this month. So I will submit our final draw request. We'll submit some final reports. This public hearing is also one of the last tasks that we're doing. So that it's just been super busy. It was also the project the auditors picked to audit, so that was fun too. Like, we're busy. So this is just a snippet of the mapping that Hometown Fiber did to verify what was put in the ground and if it works. That link at the bottom, which in your packet, it should still be live, but I can share that with you guys, is a way to go look at it and see what it is. There is color coding there, you know, green means it's verified, red means it might not be working at the time, but Hometown Fiber was very pleased with the work that they saw Savage Communications does and did for this community. So they didn't have any kind of reservations about it at all. The shelter retrofit, here's some after pictures of what it looked like. The key to this grant, or the main points of this grant, were to create a quarantine room and hard floor coverings because they were unable to sanitize the shelter during COVID, which is why we applied for the grant. They also took a storage space and turned that into offices so that they could add 5 additional bedrooms for residents of the shelter. They also added a legit commercial kitchen where they can cook meals. It's not just a microwave and a hot plate. It's an oven and still a microwave and a hot plate, but they can do a full meal in there quite easily. It's also fully ADA accessible now. The main entrance is moved to the east side of the building where the parking lot is. And as I mentioned earlier, like the HVAC has been completely replaced. It's new, it's efficient. They're gonna save money on their heating and cooling costs and they don't have to worry about it. And then when the siding was taken off, they re-insulated. So this building should not need any work for several decades, barring any like hail damage or something, but they did also upgrade a lot of the siding on it, so it should last. And that was due to all the grants that were able to be secured. They also improved their lighting and their security as well. So it's a pretty fantastic end result for the community. So that's the project. I also am required to talk about our fair housing activities. So throughout the course of the grant, we're required to do a different activity every year. We have displayed posters at county offices. We've incorporated the fair housing logo into letterhead. We have distributed brochures and posters to city halls and lending institutions, and then held some public hearings. And last fall I was here, I think I showed a video or I talked about something. And then also today, just that you can't discriminate. So here is the Fair Housing Act, prohibits discrimination because of race, color, national origin, religion, sex, familial status, and disability. And to file a complaint, you call HUD, file the complaint if needed. So just, that's me.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
I'll go first.
Go ahead.
So how many people are going through the shelter roughly or on a?
The last time that I got numbers from Matt, I want to say like they serve well over 100 a year.
100 a year.
There's 14 beds now, so they stay no more than 90 days. So it's pretty quick turnover.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
Leslie, the fiber broadband.
Yep.
System. I have a hard time knowing when this project stopped and other projects are continuing, so this project was funded and it's done. And where is Hometown Fiber gonna do anything beyond that to give us a complete map of where we are?
So we can get these files and upload it into Beacon, and we do have different layers in Beacon where we track each of these funding streams and get a kind of complete look at where broadband is and isn't in Pine County. So yes, we have that through their mapping system.
But because that's a continual problem nationwide,
Yep.
statewide of the maps not keeping up with reality or the maps overstating what people really have.
Yep.
And there's some deep concern in rural Minnesota that once this first build out gets done in the next year or two, that we're gonna have these pockets of low density that are just gonna get forgotten.
Yeah, that is a concern and a continued concern because the mapping projects that the federal and state government do, they rely heavily on people contesting them. And the process of contesting them is cumbersome. You have to have good internet
Right.
speed in order to get in there and form. So it's fortunate.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So, Commissioner Helen, I think part of your question was just getting a handle on where are we in this process? There's
Yeah.
many different broadband projects.
Right.
So just to update the board, we expect probably the next board meeting, we'll have some documentation for your review and consideration on that congressionally directed broadband project that we won, it seems like years ago. now.
Yeah.
So that one is getting close to, where it can be implemented.
Okay.
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
I thought that we were supposed to be reaching the underserved areas with part of this. You know, that was the goal.
We were all underserved.
Well, I know,
for
but
the
it's
most
pretty
part.
easy when you're close to a city, you know, it's
Yeah.
a short, I'm talking out in the brush.
Yeah.
Where the
And
kids that were going to school had to drive to the school or someone else's house to get access.
If you think in Pine County of the areas that are not served by East Central Electric, who serves them with
I
broadband?
get that, but I mean, that still should be our target. is all I'm
Yes.
saying.
That's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah.
Because we can't forget about those people.
So by the time that the Main Street that David mentioned gets finished, as well as EC's plans. So SCI Broadband has gotten some RDOF funding, and then this funding filled those pockets. They also received some border to border, which filled another pocket. And then this congressionally directed spending gets us all the way over to the Wisconsin border. So in my mind, the mapping that we have done, 2/3 of the county will have decent internet. It's the northern third that we're struggling with, and it's the provider. I'm not sure how to lure them in. So that is next, like that has to be the next priority for broadband for sure, is how do we get up there and either find a new provider to bring it there or encourage the existing one to actually look at this. Because they do reach out periodically, but it's not in the same fervor that SCI works in, or Midco or ECE. So it's difficult.
So in my experience recently, I'm finding that commissioners have a lot of leeway. Is there anything that the commissioners from up north in that area can help you with to be verbal and maybe get things moving a little faster?
We could set up a call and a meeting and see where it goes from there.
Okay. So I do have a question on, I was talking to a resident that lives out where they just got the SCI cable, and it was, I was so excited to see it, and she said none of us can afford it. It costs so much money to bring it into the house. So, and they do charge, because I checked, because they won my grant. But is there anything that we can help these residents do to make it?
They should apply for the broadband extension grants that
Okay.
still exists, as far as I know. I can send that out to you guys again, try to push it up. Anybody that reaches out to me and says, I can't afford to run it from the road to my house, I tell them to apply for this broadband extension grant, because that does cover the cost, and then it shouldn't cost them anything. It pays the provider to run that line, to make the extension.
So do it quick before they pull it again.
Because that was supposed to solve that issue. And I think Pine County's had a few dozen applications every round. So it's just a matter of continuously reminding people, and I would hope that SCI would remind people as well, because it's a great funding stream for them to get to some remote places without taking the hit that will never get returned, because the rates can't be rates to accommodate that necessarily.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other?
Does anybody else have any questions for Leslie? All right, so we're going to open it up for public hearing, take public testimony. Does anybody from the public, I'm going to look at you because you're the only one, have anything that they'd like to add to this, or any questions that you have?
As far as fire optics and stuff.
Yeah. Do you want to come to the mic, and if you tell us who you are and where you're from, and
Doug Stanger, Royalton. I think on the bigger picture, their plan is to abandon the copper-based phone systems. And so it's not a matter of leaving pockets out there, cover every pocket, and that's where the border to border comes into place there. It's just a little more difficult in Minnesota than some other states. But I work up north occasionally in Hibbing and Gilbert and all kinds of towns have it in their small towns. It's just the outlying areas that don't have it right now. So.
you know, it amazes me in Pine County, the people that don't have cell phone service, and then their regular phone service gets, you know, somebody hits it and they don't have that for a month. And we have a lot of people that really suffer trying to have any communication. So, yeah.
Locally in our area, the neighbor lady still has the copper-based phone line. There's only 2 repair guys left. They went down from 4 to 2.
Wow.
That's kind of telling you.
Yes. Well, thank you. We're going to close public hearing. Once again, does anybody have any questions or additional comments? Thank you, Leslie. Personnel Committee report.
Yeah, we met September 9th and made the following recommendations. Health and Human Services acknowledge the resignation of eligibility worker Jenna Lee Chamberlain effective August 2nd, 2024, improve the backfill of the position and subsequent vacancies that may occur due to internal promotion or lateral transfer. In the sheriff's office in the jail, acknowledge the resignation of Corrections Officer Glenn Heinz effective August 21st, 2024. And approve the backfill of the position, any subsequent vacancies that may occur due to internal promotion or lateral transfer. Also in the jail, acknowledge the resignation of Corrections Officer Chantel Kreger effective September 11, 2024. And approve the backfill of the position, any subsequent vacancies that may occur due to internal promotion or lateral transfer. Then in probation, acknowledge the resignation of Senior Corrections Agent Michelle Sellner effective September 20th, 2024. Approve the backfill of the position and any subsequent vacancies that may occur due to internal promotion or lateral transfer. There is some other stuff on there, but I will make a motion to approve them. A, B, and C.
I will second.
So we have a motion by Josh, a second by Matt. Are there any questions on what we've covered so far? All those in favor to accept the committee?
I,
Opposed? Motion carried. Do you want to talk more on that, Josh?
I mean, there's some stuff on there if you wanted to look. What's nice about the way Jackie does our probation minutes now is it does show open positions, does show new hires. It's very positive right now. So, I mean, we did lose a couple people in the jail, but we did hire a few people. I think more. I think we're net positive right now. So, I mean, we got almost 300 employees in the county. You're gonna have people rotating through different places a lot. So, but they're doing a great job. So.
Thank you. Consider the preliminary 2025 property tax budget.
Madam Chair, members of the board, in your packet, in the agenda request, I think the most important points are towards the bottom of the first page, that paragraph that starts after discussion. I tried to summarize the assumptions that I understood were necessary in order to get to a balanced budget with a 3% levy increase. And so I did contact the Historical Society and the Soil and Water Conservation District and let them know that their appropriation amounts for 2025 would be the same as 2024, so no increase. There's the proposed use of $1 million of American Rescue Plan Act funding. And there is the sheriff's office lieutenant position is removed. And then with a 3% levy increase, the gap is about $67,000. And that'll move up and down a little bit as we get to final numbers. But typically at this point, that is a number that can reasonably be a gap that can reasonably be eliminated before December when you need to set a final budget.
Does anybody have any questions for Dave? Thank you, Dave. Commissioner updates.
Did you want to set?
Oh, I'm sorry. We need to do that, don't we?
Yes.
That would be a good thing. All right. So do we have a motion to set the preliminary budget?
Yeah,
A
and
little bit with, I believe we need to put the dollar amount in there.
correct.
No.
And the dollar, I can add the dollar amount, Madam Chair.
$786,839. Which equates to about a 3% increase.
I'll second.
All right. Motion by Steve, second by Josh. Any questions, concerns?
Madam Chair, just to clarify, Steve, I'm not sure if you said budget or levy. I just want to be sure that the record is clear that it was levy.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I oppose.
Motion carried. Now we'll go to commissioner updates. So the auditor's exit review or the audit exit review, we all got a summary on that and we talked a little bit about it before. Does anybody have any questions on what you received from the auditor?
No.
Then we're going to go on the collaborative problem solving for complex challenges. And I went down to St. Paul for that. It was really interesting. You picked what your problem was that you're trying to deal with. And for us, talking about the SSIS and we've got the meeting coming up next week where we're doing another live demonstration of the SSIS system, which I just want to do a push on that it was posted so that more than one county commissioner can be, or two county commissioners can be there. It's good if we can show a front that we're supporting having this taken care of. But it was interesting, the problems that people came up with and just the way that you learned to talk about things. It was well worth it. The Central Solid Waste Commission.
We met a week ago Monday and we did a tour actually of the cell that's nearing completion. They've got the excavation done. So what happens now is as we were touring, they got this 7-acre hole in the ground. I can't remember how many feet deep. It looks like an open pit mine but it's not quite that deep. But they put 2 feet of clay. They're hauling clay from a neighboring farm, putting it 6-inch lifts, packing it. They get that all on there. Then they put a plastic liner in. Then they put a sand in, and then they begin their piping to catch the leachate and the gas. We're interested in the methane gas. We want to suck all the methane gas out of it. And that gets burned in a big cat engine and produces electricity. And
So does the lining have to go all the way up the walls?
yeah, and what they do is they move that up the wall as it fills, so it doesn't be a big rain collector. They actually develop a way to get the runoff off because that's just rainwater and we don't have to treat it as leachate then. So as that gets done, they're getting very close to the completely filling the old cell. So that'll get closed.
How do you cover that?
They cover that with clay and it gets encapsulated then forever. Fruity, I guess. Hopefully.
Good spot for solar. You're done.
Yeah. Yeah, that's about it. It's a big project, and it's what we have with that hole in the ground is about 7 years worth of garbage. So I think we got room for about 5 to 6 more of those expansions. So it'll do my lifetime, but I worry about our kids and grandkids. We're gonna have to figure out some other way to do it. And if you go to talk to the people like at conferences, this, that, I picked a lot of brains of people that are doing incineration. And depending on who you talk to, that's exactly what you have to do.
Do they have to filter the stack?
Oh, they filter the heck out of the stack. So it's supposedly absolutely clear, clean air going up that exits the smokestack.
What is that cost comparison?
It costs at least as much, if not more, as landfilling. It's not a cheap alternative. And then they have to landfill the ash.
Less than that though.
But they're developing a way to take the ash and mix it in road mix. And if they can make sure they get all the contaminants out of there, and then it gets encapsulated in a road mix, they it can meet all the environmental thresholds as of today. So,
Interesting.
yeah. It's a way to, you know, and
So let's say if you were a landfill operation, convert, that'd be a big expense.
it would be, Matt, but I think there's you're still gonna have to landfill some stuff.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying you have room to store that.
And so, maybe, you know, we put it, probably gonna cost $5 million, $6 million 7 years from now to do another cell. So you take some of that money and start putting it towards maybe a incineration system. I don't know. We got a lot of
The
to
reduction,
think about.
the reduction in what goes in the fill has to be dramatic. Though.
Dramatic.
The cell will last you a lot longer.
One of the issues we have in East Central Minnesota, there's a demolition pit east of Rush City. And that owner is elderly. And it seems like there's nobody to take over that operation. And it's an online facility. Nobody wants to buy an online facility. Liability. So if that closes, then all that demo stuff is gonna come to the landfill. We have a lot of demo stuff right now that comes to the landfill just because if you're gonna tear down a building in sandstone, it's cheaper to pack that 20 or 40 yard container full as you can get it and take it to the transfer station than it is to spend the extra fuel to get it down to Rush City. So. You know, lots of things to think about. It'll keep us awake at night for a while.
That's a good report. Thank you.
I went to the rural counties conference at the policy committee. And they were talking about the incinerators and then the road, you know, putting the ashes in the roads.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it's a hard thing to get the permits to be able to do that.
It is because, and a thing I worry about, Terry, is the environmental threshold things will change. And we've saw that with the forever chemicals, PFAS. Chemicals, they've lowered that threshold now so that we have those forever chemicals showing up in people drinking water, which a year ago would have been perfectly safe, but now they've lowered the threshold by 10 times. So now they're over the limit. So, you know, if my well had it in, I wouldn't want to be drinking it either. So understand where people are coming from.
Thank you, Steve. East Central Regional Library, I missed my first meeting. Soil and Water Conservation District.
Yeah, Mrs. Soil and Water, they changed the meeting time. I talked to Erin, she stated it was uneventful and the minutes are available.
Fall Policy Conference. Who wants to go first? Do you have anything?
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Matt.
I'll talk about probation.
Yeah.
That was pretty passionate.
Yeah.
So, Commissioner of DOC gave the bulk of the presentation. And of course, you know, we don't know for sure how the funding is going to be kept up to what we decided out of committee. But he's in charge of the funds, you know, the legislature just gives the funds to the DOC commissioner. And he's inside the prison system. So the bulk of his whole presentation was to speed up the treatment of the inmates, you know, that programs inside the prison and get them out of there. And then transfer the dollars he saves to the more high risk inmates in prison. And so, and it's like, you know, that instead of let the funds fall that when they release to probation, That's not the way it is. So that was the argument that what we were having a discussion. And the other thing is he thinks that, there was a lot of law enforcement people there in that system. That are in that committee. And for someone to end up in prison, it isn't like their first offense. They've been through lots of offenses before they end up in prison for, 7 years. A lot. So that part of the system is kind of weird too, because they're there for a reason. But he said that 500 of them right now are there just for less than a year, so he doesn't even care about them. But they'll still come over on probation. So in the end, probation offices are going to get more work. So I don't know what's going to happen. And so the probation people in the meeting questioned him pretty hard about the plan he has. Is that a evidence-based plan that did you pick it? No, he said, no, he's just making up his own plan that's going along. So I don't know. I don't want to be negative, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. But it's just, we'll see what happens, where there's a lot of pushback.
I want to pick.
And I'll stop there.
Shoot, Steve.
Transportation is interesting to me because there is a lot of things, broadband is part of infrastructure, so that gets talked about. Anyway, a lot of, oh boy, you just want to have that toothpicks in your eyes, stay awake for some of that report. But anyway, if we got through that. But a lot of time was spent on the wetland bank. And how does that affect transportation? Well, every time you rebuild a road and you need a wetland credit, where is that wetland credit coming from? It has to come from your region. And wetland credit bank is tied to the bonding bill. So in years when they are supposed to, like this last year was typically a bonding year. They don't have a bonding bill. Nobody is against the wetland credit part of the bonding bill, but the bonding bill doesn't get passed, so neither does any money for wetland credits. So what happens now is in subsequent years coming up, construction projects, because we have to be planning that's why we make 5-year road plans. If you don't have a wetland delineation plan for that county road that you're redoing, the project has to sit on the shelf until that. And so we're trying to come up with a way that we can convince legislators to either make sure they pass a bonding bill every other year like they used to, or put the wetland bank, we know it has to happen. It's not going to break the state, put it in the general fund. And so there's a constant, because 1 year they get 26 million. Then you go 3 years and get nothing. And then you get 12 million. And the projects keep going on, and the cost for wetland delineation keeps going up and up. And some of these roads sit there for 3 years waiting for the wetland delineation process to begin. So it's very frustrating to county engineers, county commissioners that have had roads sitting on hold. Anyway.
So if you're going to build a wetland, bank, they'd rather have you create one than use an existing one to protect it, right?
Well, if they can recreate one, they get a full credit acre for acre.
No, let's say if the county was going to build one.
If we were going to build the wetland bank, we've tried that. We gotta find the right piece of land. It has to get approved. And it doesn't get approved. You know, we tried to preserve wetlands, then you get like a quarter credit.
Yeah.
But if you got a lot of land, it was developed.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of work to be done on that. And rural transit is an issue in Pine County. It's an issue in about 80 of the non-metro counties. We're way better off than some counties, but we're not in tall cotton, so to speak. So Department of Transportation and the legislators have recognized this apparently, and they're putting together a working committee. And they requested that one commissioner from rural Minnesota get placed on this committee that's going to meet in the end of October in St. Paul. And they picked Steve Holland to be on that committee. So I will represent all the counties in the state of Minnesota, especially Pine County, in rural transit issues.
That is awesome.
The other thing that is troublesome about some legislation that passed is when they're gonna do a new piece of 4-lane highway, let's say, or an interchange, it has to meet all these safety standards and all this stuff to give it a grade. The other thing it has to meet is greenhouse gas emissions formula. How many miles of road is it? How many cars are going to travel on that road at what speed, and all this stuff that I don't understand. I'm not sure anybody could explain it really well, but that's part of the formula. And there's some real worry as this rolls out in the next couple of years, it's going to start affecting county road projects. Which could add another big layer of paperwork for people to calculate that. More to come. That's it.
So one of the things from the general conference that we sat in on, they were talking about cannabis. And I thought that this was really interesting. There are 290 social equity licenses that are going to be given out. They received 1,870 applications that they have to go through. That's crazy. So out of the 1,870, they have to go through and figure out who actually qualifies. And then it's going to be kind of a lottery. So it's going to be interesting to see what actually happens with that. But 1,870 social equity licenses or applications is what they received for that 290 licenses. And then African American Preservation Act, that's going to be another expensive thing to make sure that people are treated correctly. Hennepin and Ramsey County right now are the test counties. And so all the money right now is going to Hennepin and Ramsey on that to figure out how to serve and how to do the best for the residents. But then it's going to be coming our way. And so then the question is, when it comes our way, is there going to be enough money to help us fund it? Or is it all going to go to Hennepin and Ramsey? So more to come with that. They've got, I think, until 2026. So they're doing it for 2025 and 2026 to see where that goes. So that's what I have. So then we will go to,
Just
oh, go ahead, go ahead.
Just one other thing. I've always said, when you go to a conference, a lot of times you learn more from the guy sitting next to you at lunch than you do from any speaker. Had breakfast with a farmer from Staples, and I found out that when I was a kid, that was worthless sand. Wouldn't even grow good jack pine trees. Right now, he's getting $425 an acre rent, cash rent. For somebody to grow potatoes on there for worthless ground.
It's not worthless anymore.
No, it's not. They found out there was a good aquifer under it. They pump water and, anyway, I find that interesting.
Kettle River, one watershed, one plan.
Yeah, take that. We had our meeting. We updated the master work agreements with all the parties involved. The Carlton County Ag Waste Management Facility was approved. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then the SWCD Ag Staff Statement of Work. And those things were all approved as for the process. But back to the Ag Management Project, it was kind of ready to go. You know, ahead of. It was because it had federal funding already. He just had to have the match and stuff. This project is a big beef project up in Carlton County and it directly influences the Kettle River. So anyway, it's a $590,000 project. And the Kettle River One Watershed One Plan is contributing $160,000 to that project. But the reduction that's happening, I'll just give you the numbers real quick, Madam Chair. So before the COD numbers, they call it in pounds of what was 715 going into the river. With this project, that's going to be reduced to 138 pounds. The nitrogen before the project is 40 pounds, whatever part going into the river, and now it's going to be reduced to 8 pounds. And the phosphorus was at 13 pounds, it's going to be reduced to 3. And then the fecal chloroform, this is a weird number, but that's going to be reduced to a 2.95 E plus 14. That's a chemistry number. And I had him explain to me, I can't even begin to explain it to you here. But anyway, so the total reduction in pounds is 128, down to 128 pounds off of the 150 or 159. Down to just 31 still going in from that's the BOD number pounds, but so altogether, it's a big number. And it's going to satisfy a lot of the goal, really, right out of the box. And it's at the headwaters, so it's running through the whole system. So it's a really, really good project. And it has to stay operational for 25 years as part of the plan, you know, that's it. So I suppose anybody can go bankrupt, you know, but whatever, but. And the thing is just a storage facility for the printer. And it's like, you know, how you have a salt shed with the concrete walls so high. They build a big thing like that with a concrete floor so nothing can get away. Then they have an open wall for airflow so it doesn't compost. And then they have a roof over the whole thing. So it just contains it. It's not a pit. It's sitting on top of the ground. Then he can move it all as he needs it for his fields and stuff when the time is right. If they time all that, they have to follow a plan. So when spring rains and, you know, or snow melt, they can't just be washing on the frozen ground. So it's all controlled in the plan when he can use it and apply it. So it's a good, seems like a good plan.
Interesting.
That's pretty much it.
Thanks, Matt.
Oh, I want to comment on this for the Woodland Stewardship Project, because that's important for landowners that are that they know that if they do a woodland steward project in the watershed, if it's on a stream or whatever that has, they could end up getting the whole project paid for if it has direct impact on the river. So that's another good thing, which is a good tax offset for them and things like that too.
Right. Thank you. Extension.
Yeah, we had a meeting. It was mostly talk about post fair and kind of end of summer stuff. So the fair ended up really good. They gave a good report on the 4-H. We are so fortunate. Our 4-H is thriving, doing a really good job. And Sarah is doing great. They had a bunch of their membership is way up. They had a good fair. So there's a bunch of stats about it. That was pretty good. our farm egg educator, she talked about summer was kind of, they had a few field days and a lot of stuff going on there. Just really kind of neat to see where that has come. I know we're only a half-time egg educator, but man, the resources that opens up to the University of Minnesota. And our egg educator is half-time in Isani too. So they do a lot of stuff, work together, because Isani ain't that far. So a lot of our people are go to Isani or vice versa, or in between. So it's really kind of cool to see the collaboration and really what they're doing. And then Terry talked about Master Gardeners, and they finally had their grand opening of the Discovery Garden in Pine City, which was Cindy Novi kind of, when she passed away, she dedicated a bunch of money to try to get that going a little bit more. And some of her family was there. They had quite a few people there. And if you ever get a chance to get to Pine, stop and look at that thing. It's for how little of an area it is, man. I think it said 750 plants, 90 species. It's got everything for any time of the year except maybe winter. I don't know. I should have asked him. That's a good question to ask. But everything turned out good. We already started talking about the farm family of the year for next year. So we're gonna start thinking about that in our next meeting. So if anybody has any ideas on that, reach out to Katie and our University of Minnesota Extension, and then she'll do some research on it. So that's about it.
I have walked through that Discovery Garden and yeah, it's beautiful.
Mhm.
I have some plants that I want to buy for next year at my house. Chemical Coalition. That is, if you want to look at these packets that you received, they were all put on your spot. One of the things that they talked about was the yoga program, which I think there's 5 employees on this staff and they received, I didn't do a copy of how many applications that they did, but they turned some away. They impacted 3,234 youth, which is amazing. And then 30 different organizations. They had things from, one gal took classes on barrel racing and that type of stuff. They had kids going to Wolf Ridge. They had like a little kids, I think, one of the pictures that are printed, they couldn't put the kids' faces on here, so you see smiley faces on there. But they had like a week's kid camp where the young kids could go to that. They bought baseball uniforms, they did swimming lessons, they did drama classes. Actually had a play that they did. The work that they did to get the kids to get out of the house and to do activities was amazing. And this is one of the things that we're hoping to do another $50,000 towards next year. It's in the budget where we can continue to give opioid money to the kids to keep them active and out of the house. That was a big part of what we talked about at that meeting. There were 32, let's see. I'm just seeing real quick if I wrote down how many total applications. There were 86 applications that were approved. Or there were 86 applications, 56 were approved and 30 were denied because there wasn't enough explanation as to what it was going to benefit. And then, but they did say, please reapply, finish filling in the blanks and reapply. But this is one of the good works that our employees have done with our opioid money with Chemical Coalition.
I will make a comment on that.
Yeah.
Just going through the organizations impacted. My kids were involved with quite a few of these things. I know our soccer this year that they had over 400 kids in soccer and youth soccer. Now my oldest son is in football. My youngest son, actually, the couple of them are second oldest, and the football coach said there's over 400 kids from, I can't remember, from tackle football. So I think it's 4th grade to seniors that are playing football now. I mean, and then now they got a flag football, which my kindergartner is in, and it's literally herding cats, but
I bet it's hilarious.
It's so much fun to watch. I ain't gonna lie, but this is, I mean, I'm seeing huge impacts with this. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
That hasn't been.
They did an amazing job. And the kids, to get that many applications from the kids are really enjoying it. And it's kind of scary what's going to happen next year because it's going to go really fast. But yeah, that was just a real highlight of the day was to sit in on that meeting and see what was going on. Central Minnesota Jobs and Training.
Yes, I got to sit down on that. It was a lot, I ain't gonna lie. And I should have listened to you and went to the one, but I did sit through them all. So it's a lot of the same. So David said, so you should remember everything. And of course I can't. But we did talk about the audit. They're working through an audit right now and it's rather extensive and it's going good. They got a new financial person there and it sounds like he's really doing a lot of good work. The unfortunate part about it is new ones, the last one, were they there quite a while?
A long time.
Yeah, so a lot of the software and
Well,
stuff.
wait, you're talking the treasures. The treasures are kind of not long term.
The actual financial guy,
I don't think they were there that long. It's like they came in and
Yeah,
it was
she
so
was
much.
there quite a while.
Was
The
it?
lady that was financial director.
Was she?
Yeah.
Okay,
And this one I-
because then she had left and then they got another one and the other one lasted maybe 6 months and it was just
Oh,
too
okay.
muddy. And so but this guy is like,
Yeah.
wow.
And he had talked about a lot of the software and stuff they do for their finances. Is like he can't do a report monthly or weekly, he's got to do it yearly, so they're trying to keep up. So unfortunately, all that stuff costs a lot of money, but they're slowly working on getting some of that new stuff, working with the auditors and working with the finances and stuff. One of the big things they talked about was there's a push right now, I guess nationally, to only have one office per state. So right now there's 16 in Minnesota, 12, something like that. I can't
Yeah.
remember. And they're more local, which ours is a pretty big area, but it is local. And now there's a big push by the governors to have it just one in the state appointed by the governor. And the fear is you'd lose a lot of local, because even in our district, you got Stearns County, you got some more metro-y counties that aren't the same as Pine County or different counties in that district. And they do a lot of specific work in that area. So, and the fear, of course, is if it was one in the whole state, it's just going to be metro around the 7-county metro area. And all us outstate lose out big time. So that was a big push. She was gonna send me some links to, the biggest thing they want is some businesses to email or send letters to
Amy Klobuchar,
Yep.
Gina.
Yep. And because they said businesses they listen to the businesses even more than the local area. And they said the other thing is maybe as a board, we could maybe send some letter, kind of the same thing.
Right.
And they had asked everybody to go back to their boards and see. I think they're gonna communicate and see if it's something we want to pass a resolution and say we don't want that. So that was about it. It was a good meeting, a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of good people in there. Their Zoom isn't as good as Ryan. So maybe they need some help from you, but they must not do a lot of them, but I appreciate the fact that I could join at Zoom, so I didn't have to drag them on.
Right.
So, because I would have to hitch a ride.
If that went to just the metro area, that would really hurt outstate Minnesota. Huge.
Big time.
Huge. State and Tribal Partnership Committee, that they ended up changing it to a Zoom meeting instead of having everybody go to White Earth Nation because nobody wanted to drive that far. But it was a good meeting. They're coming up with 2 different options that they believe will help the tribal families to stay united. And one of them is the Family Resource Centers, and they're looking at doing them on 2 reservations to test it. And then also having like ICWA court judges that would go from counties. So you're not going to have different judges trying to figure out the ICWA laws. So that would be a benefit also. And so that's kind of where they're at. I'm not going to be able to make the next meeting because the district director for AMC was changed to that day to do the budget and to figure out what we're going to actually do. But I'm hoping that Sam and Kayla can go from Pine County because it's going to be a lot of demonstrations on FRCs and how that works for tribal. And I think that those two would be amazing resources for that meeting.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just a question. So on the judge piece.
Yeah.
So there would be state district court judges who would specialize in ICWA?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there already are now, but they kind of stay in their little regions.
Yeah.
So, yeah. There's so many different interpretations and they keep saying this county only has maybe 2 cases where this county might have, hundreds. And so hundreds is an exaggeration, I'm sorry. But how do we do it so that everybody's treated the same? And that's one of the ways that they came up with it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Lakes and Pines, thank you for asking. Lakes and Pines, Steve?
Yeah, we met yesterday and I think since the beginning of Lakes and Pines, they have an annual meeting. We still have an annual meeting. But the annual meeting used to be, you'd have a sit-down dinner and had some speakers and, mostly who came were the board members and the staff, people that go to regular meetings. So we got a new director last year and some of us board members suggested maybe there's a better way to do it. So they tried a picnic last Saturday. And they had about 400 people attend that picnic. And they were people or the clients that are served by Lakes and Pines. And they had staff there and they had representatives that deal with the people there. All had a little booth like you would at a fair or something. And it was very successful. And it cost, they probably had 50 people at last year's annual meeting. This year they fed people hot dogs and pop and potato chips for half the amount of money that we used to spend on an annual thing, which is way better deal.
That's amazing. 400 people. Wow.
Where was it?
At Mora, right in the parking lot.
Oh, at their place.
Close enough to go to the grocery store because you didn't buy enough hot dogs because you were expecting 50. That's crazy. Are there any others?
Yeah, we did have a Central Minnesota Council on Aging meeting last Thursday. I think the struggle continues to be real for the people that provide the Meals on Wheels, I call it, the congregate dining and home delivery. Those numbers inflation has eaten way into, and they're nonprofits that do it. So it's mostly local social services and Catholic charities that do all of this. But they're coming up with some pretty innovative ideas with frozen meals and they seem to be a big hit for the people that are actually getting the meal. So very good. We had them one time. They gave them to us, so we know what we're talking about. They're very tasty. They're done well.
Yeah. When Jerry's dad was home alone and he couldn't cook so much, he did really good tomato soup, but trying to do other things, it was really hard. And so we would go to the senior citizen facility and pick him up frozen meals and bring him home and fill his freezer. And he always raved about what they have. And so, we need to let people know that they can do that because it's a big asset.
One quick thing. 4-H, I think it was 4-H, I'm trying to jog my memory now, was talking about they're looking for some projects to do. And they said at one time they had done a bunch of paper bags for Meals on Wheels.
Oh, really?
And they bought a big box of bags and then decorated them or wrote, have a great day. So all the kids could do something like that. So that might be worth, I'll try to connect with Sarah and tell her to get a hold of that, but if you guys talk, maybe that's across,
Get a hold of me and I'll
Okay.
pass it on.
Yeah, and or the council, maybe that's something in different counties
Yeah.
they could work with and
Yeah.
stuff like that, so.
That's interesting. I have a couple others. One of them is that yesterday I had the National Counties Association Tribal Relations. And it was fun because a lot of the talk was on the resolution that we took to see if we could get PIL money on tribal trust land and how important it is to get that done. So just to get that support and to know that that's something that's not just our county, but it's a national thing to be able to have that money to do our vital services when land goes into tribal trust. And then they were talking about what to do with the next policy meetings and that type of stuff. Who to bring in to make it so that there is more tribal relations that are going on and to be able to work together. The other one that I had is the district meeting, and you all received these two papers too from David. We've talked about AMC and how they are looking at, we are going to have an increase of dues. We'll be meeting next month to verify that, and we will be talking extensively at the district meetings, which are coming up in Cooch for us. And we'll be talking about the finances there and how we need to do this for our employees. So if you look at the one, it says how much AMC brought in for counties total. But there's also one here that's just on Pine County and how much money program aid was increased by. So this is just a really good resource to be able to see what AMC actually does for us. I know that there's some people that kind of wonder, and those that are active know that they do a lot. And so I just really liked this and wanted y'all to see it.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I only had a copy of the Pine County one. I didn't realize there were two separate. So
Oh,
we'll get a copy of the AMC general one out.
There's that one.
yeah, that's this one. Yep.
Madam Chair, do you know, Dave, how much they went up? I see it says 18, but do you remember what it was last year?
So my understanding is that the final vote has not been taken, but Finance Committee recommendation is that for Pine County, it will be a 12% increase or $2,000. So our dues would go from $16,402 this year to $18,402 next year.
It's actually surprising they can do so much with so little. I mean,
I know.
if we didn't have AMC, it would be,
Well, and I have a list and I didn't bring it with, but it talks about like this, the cities, the Association of Minnesota Cities, and then the schools, and it goes through the whole list. What Minnesota counties gets is very minimal compared to everybody else. But you look at the good work that they do, it's crazy.
the training.
I have a question.
Yep.
With this showing everything that they pay out, would you be able to, or maybe David Menke can, we could see the cost of goods associated with this, what it actually takes to fund the Association of Minnesota Counties?
Their entire budget?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, just to see what actually,
Oh, yeah, their budget.
I mean, if we're 18,000 a county, but I would imagine counties all pay different, correct?
Yeah,
Times 87 counties, just to give people an idea.
they got like a
Cost of goods are for what you got out of it.
And Madam Chair,
$1 budget.
so to answer Commissioner Waldheim's question, I know they put out an annual budget. I recall seeing it typically at the annual meeting during the annual business meeting. I will reach out to AMC and get a copy of the most recent annual report, which has their budget in it.
That'd be great. Thank you.
I might have it here too, JJ. I'll go through what I've got here and see. That's all. Are there any others? All right, if there are no others, have a great couple of weeks.
Number 7.
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. We are going to close the meeting for labor negotiation update. So stay tuned. We'll come back in a little bit.
Well, someone would have to make.
Oh, we have to
I'll make a motion that we go into closed session after a 5-minute recess.
Thanks, Steve. Do we have a second? Thanks, Josh. Got a motion by Steve, second by Josh. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. I didn't flip my page. I was seeing the printed.
Let's go home with a bunch of paper.
All right, we have closed the closed session and we are open again. Is there any other business that anybody would like to bring forward? We have a motion to adjourn. Second,
Second.
motion, those in favor?
I
Meeting adjourned.